Good evening to you. I just wanted to give you a video to give you an update about this class, this ANG 168. It's criminal justice writing, and it actually is a very helpful class. I think I've taught this class for about 15 years, but I usually teach it in class. Randy Slagle and Gary Yorn suggested, why don't you try it online one semester and see what it's like? So this is a semester that I'm trying it online, and hopefully it will work out pretty well. I know there's one student in this class, Lisa, who was in the class previously, and she had to change her work schedule and so on. But in the in-class version, I mean, I probably have 6 or 8 speakers that come in. In the online class, we don't have that, so we're going to try to supplement it in different ways. The biggest thing that I want you to do for this class, though, is I want you to watch the nightly news and check out, some of the crimes and the incidents and so on. I actually saw an incident that took place last week, and it was a 14-year-old juvenile who stole an SUV, I believe, and he stole a vehicle, and he drove off with it, and the police chased him, and I think he flipped over on the parkway and might have hit another vehicle. And his mother said that the person should not have left their keys in their car, that her son wasn't totally at fault, but you certainly don't take another vehicle that isn't your own. And the police shouldn't have chased him, is what she said. So I don't know if those are really good arguments, but watch the nightly news and then, of course, read the newspaper. Last year in this criminal justice writing class, or maybe the year before, there was a student who I had in class, and her sister, her last name was Doherty. She was murdered by a group of people in a home in Greensburg, close to the Greensburg-Salem Junior High School. And they took her body in a garbage can and left it there. It was a snowy day, and so this case had to be investigated. But anyhow, Joy obviously talked about the detectives who investigated it and the police and so on, and dealing with the district attorney's office. And so it was really it was heart wrenching to hear that, but it was also interesting to see all the research and everything, that was done for the case. So anyhow, read the newspapers. This Joy Doherty case, I don't know if that's the woman's name that was killed. Her last name was Doherty. Read the newspapers, and now this case is starting to unfold, where the one defendant is going through trial. He may get the death penalty. And so, follow the newspaper, but follow some of the crime incidents that take place. And, read the local section of the newspaper. And, even if you want to, you can go to the WPXI, WTAE, and some of the other websites, or even triblive.com or postgazette.com, and just follow the news a little bit. Most people think, why should I read a newspaper? I'm not really interested in the news. And this is the reason I'm going to tell you why to read a newspaper, which is very important. A big part of criminal justice, whether you're a municipal police officer, probation, if you work in a prison, or if you're juvenile probation, or whatever it is you do, you're a state trooper, you become a detective one day, you might become a district judge at some point down the road. Judge Joe DeMarcus does that now. I mean, you never know. I mean, Judge Joe DeMarcus first started here at WCCC. He was a police officer, became, like, I think, a lieutenant or a captain. He was with Westmoreland County as a detective, and I was a district judge. So, I mean, you never know what the path is that it will lead you on. But the thing that I'm going to tell you, which is so important for you to be aware of, is in criminal justice, you have to have rapport with people. You have to break the ice. You have to have a conversation with people, and you have to get to know them. And anytime that you interview somebody, especially if they're accused of something and you want to get information from them, you have to take the time to have some small talk. Have a little conversation. What do you think about the Steelers this year? Are you surprised that the Pirates aren't doing as well lately? Are you a Penguins fan? Do you like to shop? Have you gone to see any good movies lately? The more topics you know about, the more versed you are, the more likely it is that you're going to find common ground with somebody, and you're going to have a conversation. And the reality of it is that in most types of work that you do, especially as you go further in your career, no detective's like pounding and yelling and screaming on the table. You're having a conversation with someone. You want to talk to them. You want to find out what they know. Tom Moran is a detective, a great guy, and comes to this class to speak. That's what he always says. You really, sometimes you even need to take off your watch, roll up your sleeves to say, you know what? We can stay here as long as we need to discuss the situation. I am in no hurry. So in our book, it even tells you when you're listening to someone, don't write while they are speaking, listen. And then when you go through it the second time, then you can start to have some, make some notes, or even later on after you're done with the conversation with the person, once you go back to your patrol car or your office or whatever, then you can write some notes down. You don't have to write word for word what a person says. You just have to give the flavor or the essence of it. Tom Moran, as I said, who's a detective, one of the things that he does, which I find really useful, is when he's involved in the case, he has like a tape recorder that he takes with him. And he basically says, it's midnight. I was called by Westmoreland County 911. I'm responding to an incident in Ligonier. It's an alleged homicide. It's 60 degrees out. It's rainy. There is no moon. When I get to the property, I notice a darking dog on the porch. There's a couple lights on in the house. Whatever. Those types of details are really very, very important. And even as a municipal police officer, as a state trooper, you're going to have to show probable cause for why you did something. And when you go into like search warrants, or when you write your affidavit as a probable cause for different cases you're involved in, you have to be very, very specific, and you have to connect the dots. Judge Doe DeMarcus, who comes to this class to speak, one of the things that he says is that as a good police officer, and Judge Jim Falcon also says the same thing, people that are good in his courtroom, they both are similar. They say the same thing, is they're prepared and they are polite. And that is important, because as a police officer or anything in the criminal justice system, you often have to go to the district court and you have to know the law. You have to present the cases. When you get into more felonies or more serious cases, there's an assistant DA or even the DA himself if there's, really serious homicides. But for the most part, you're going to have to verbally articulate why you did something. And Judge Joe DeMarcus shared a really good example with the class last year. Justin Scalzo, who's a canine patrol officer with the Gwinnett Police Department, there was a case and somebody alerted him and said, my car got hit. And it looks like it got hit by another vehicle that was a red vehicle. And, it got hit in the back part. So if you see another vehicle in Gwinnett that matches this kind of description, this color, and it was hit in this part of the vehicle, check into it. So he found this vehicle. He checked into it. He saw it had the same type of paint that the victim's car had on it, and he checked into it, but there was no witnesses to the incident. So he had to establish probable cause by connecting the dots by looking at circumstantial evidence. So he had to show that this car, he took pictures, the victim's car was hit here, the other car was here, so he showed pictures and took it, and then he interviewed the people who were driving the suspect vehicle that night. And their stories kind of conflicted, and so he was able to take the case forward and get a conviction out of it, and the person had to pay restitution, and there was a bit of a fine with it. So, that's good police work, and sometimes it takes more time and more effort with it. So the biggest thing that I'm trying to tell you is watch the news, read the newspaper, know what's going on, and so you'll be able to have conversation to lead into what it is that you're trying to get the person to talk about. Now, for this course, we do have this book, which is called Just the Facts, Investigative Report Writing. In the spring semester, I believe, we changed this book. And there are 10 chapters. With the online course, I'm just going to have you email me the answers to the quizzes. But when you do the quizzes, you don't have to just write A, or whatever the answer is. If you want to explain it, you can. Or some of them that ask for an explanation, Just don't write probable cause is suspecting that something happened. You need to elaborate a little bit more. So we will use the book. We'll go through all 10 of the quizzes in here. Actually, for the first week of this class, I'm going to have you send me an information sheet, and that'll be due Friday, August 17th. And then you also have to do assignment 1, and you just have to ask, 2 or 3 friends or family members what they think of you as a person, what their opinions are. And so you just have to write that in sort of narrative format, what they said to you. And you could use some quotes, and you can comment on if you agree or disagree with what they said. But it's just an assignment to see how you write. I want to see what your sentence level writing looks like. And I also want to see how you can interview someone, record what they said, and articulate what they said. Are you accurate? Are you clear? And so on. The biggest point that I'm going to stress to you, and this is a very, very important point, is 98 or 99% of the times as a police officer, not many people are going to look at your writing, or not many people are going to scrutinize what happens. But there are times, believe me when I tell you this, as a police officer, when you get involved in a situation, that many, many people are going to look at what you wrote and what you got into, because it's going to be important for legal reasons and many, many other reasons. There was a case here in Greensburg probably 5 or more years ago, and it was between Louis Farrell and Bobby Regola, he was a former, he's a son of a former state senator, Bob Regola. And anyhow, this Lou Farrell was found dead, and I believe in the Regola's backyard. He had a gunshot wound to his head. And so Lou Farrell was there. I guess he was watching the dogs. They said Bobby Farrell was at Idlewild Park. And so they came home, and I guess even maybe his father, Lou Farrell's father, Doug Farrell, discovered his son, called the police and so on. And they investigated, but the gun that was used was that State Senator Bob Regola's gun. So, I mean, how did Lou Farrell get the gun, There was a whole series of questions, but can you imagine how many people looked at that report? Not only were there criminal charges that were looked into, but civil charges. And so it can become really, really involved in, matters like that. Tom Moran, who comes to this class, said that he was involved in a case as a detective with Dr. Carl Long, who was a podiatrist in Greensburg who allegedly murdered his wife, okay? And Tom said the case took 5 years to go through the whole ways through the system, so it's pretty involved. So with our book, if you have the book with you or if you have it available to you, I just wanted to mention some of the highlights, why we write police reports. Read that chapter. You'll find that helpful. Investigation Basics is really, really good, especially the who, what, when, why of an investigation, but the qualities of a superior investigator. Watch the show called The First 48. It's on A&E. It's on Thursday nights, but you can also watch it through A&E.com. You can catch them on YouTube. But some of those really, really good detectives on there, they say, somebody commits a homicide, you need to catch them in the first 48 hours, increases the chances of success and conviction and so on. But I like this Detective Eddie Ibarra. He's from Dallas, Texas. He is quite good. There's these couple people from Memphis, Tennessee, who are really, really great detectives. It's a wonderful show, but I just like how they interview and how they do all this research to get to the truth. And it's really painstaking. It's not like Law and Order or some of those other shows. These cases sometimes take months. Sometimes the cases aren't solved, so it's a very difficult job. But they talk about cases of a superior investigator. The biggest thing, as far as you need to be tireless, you need to be creative, innovative, and so on. Note taking in chapter 3 is good. I don't know if you noticed that many people that are reporters have a little notebook that they carry in their back pocket. Police officers do that. But whatever you do when you take notes, make sure your notes are clear enough that you can remember, you can read what you wrote. The thing about it is, as a police officer, an investigator, and so on, you are not required to, if the defense attorney asks for your notebook for evidence, you don't have to use, you're not required to turn that over, because all it is used for notes. but obviously, you know, it helps you to write your reports and search warrants, affidavits of probable causes, and so on. Rules of Narrative Writing, Chapter 4, I'd read that at least 3 or 4 times. One of the most key chapters in this book. Describing persons and property, this is very, very important. And, you know, as far as a person's height, weight, any unique or interesting or different characteristics. 6 is crime reports. 7 is arrest reports. Number 8 is writing the interview. And again, like I said, with many of these, Law and Order, but more of First 48 and some other shows, when they interview someone, they often look into the person's background and they have a game plan as far as some of the questions they're going to be asking. But the biggest thing that they tell you is listen first and then write. Don't write while listening, especially while listening the first time. Writing the search warrant and then issues in writing is chapter 10, and that's it. And so we'll do a series of assignments. As I said, with this online class, it's going to be a work in progress. The class is really not totally complete now. I mean, I'm just starting. I just got the first week together, to be honest with you. And, you know, over the weekend, I'll work on it a little bit more and kind of format a little bit and design it a bit better. So hopefully it'll work out well for you. So well, I had time on this Friday night. I thought I would give you a quick overview. So that's where we are. And good luck to you in this course. Thanks.